Hello Steelers, and welcome to this video in which I'm going to be looking at the new Undaunted Stalingrad. It's, I suppose it's a bit of a preview, review, box opening discussion about the game. I can't say too much because I've actually only played one scenario out of this, and so far it's a campaign game where a lot of the stuff is basically spoilers. So I'm not going to give too many spoilers away in this. There probably will be a couple just inadvertently. I'm not going to try to do too many, but basically the way that the game works is, as I say, it's a campaign where you progress, you read passages from books, so there's a story that goes on depending on how you do in the game itself. We'll talk more about that properly later on. I got this just the other week. I've actually been looking forward to it for a long time, and it was the thing that really turned me on to Undaunted, the Undaunted series. I do have some videos of the previous Undaunted games, which is Undaunted Normandy and North Africa, and also Reinforcements as well. There's a review of those elsewhere on the channel. I'll put a link in this video. I'll also put a link in the description as well. But this, as I say, it's going to be a bit of a strange review, simply because I've not completed the campaign yet. But I mean, I know enough about the Undaunted series of games to talk about it. At least, and how the games work anyway, so we can at least go through that, and I can show you some of the components in the game as well, and also the kind of thing that you'll be buying into if you decide to get this. So before we go further, there is one thing that's the elephant in the room, is the price of this. It currently retails through Osprey Games themselves for £90. Now that's the recommended retail price. I got this for £65 from Zaytu Games, and I've also seen it elsewhere cheaper. So you can get it quite cheap if you don't go direct through to Osprey. I mean, if you want to support Osprey, then that's fine. If you don't want to, then you can find this a lot cheaper. They're still selling the copies of this anyway, but on average it looks to be about £60, I'd say £60 to £65 from what I've seen. There has been a couple of cheaper areas. Now you've got to kind of judge this against other things, and obviously at the moment, you know, it's the crisis, the living crisis at the moment, cost of living crisis here in the UK at least, is really ramping up prices when it comes to things like energy and other bills and things. So this might be something that might put some people off, but as I say, you can get it cheap. You've also got to kind of weigh this up against other games as well. For about £20 more, this is a much bigger box than most of the other games that I actually own. I've got a few more over there I can just look at. I'm turning around, and you know, they're somewhere about, I don't know, £40 to £50 each. So for its price, the amount of stuff that you get in this and the amount of work that's gone into this, I don't think it's a particularly bad decision. You will be playing lots of games out of the campaign. And it's a great fun game, and it's a really, really good system anyway. So I think, to be perfectly honest, the price justifies the game as well. Now, I sound a little bit like I'm trying to justify things, but I'll end it there, because I'm not. I'm just saying that, you know, I think some people will balk at the price. Personally, I don't. I think there's a lot of work that's gone into this. So look, what we'll do is, like I say, I'll kind of open the box for you here. I've already opened it and popped the tokens, so I'm going to show you some of those anyway. But I'll go through some of the books and some of the stuff that happens in this, and basically give you a brief overview of how the game plays as well, and show you where we are with the campaign itself at this point. So I'll get the camera set up, and we'll look in the box. Okay, so here we have our box, and as I said, as you can see, it actually is a huge thing. It's a massive lump of cardboard just here. You know, it's almost as big as my hand. But let's get this top off and we'll have a look, see what's in here. And the first thing we're greeted with is the rule book. It just says here, do not read any booklets, unseal index, punch cards, or move any components until you've read the assembly and storage guide on page 4. I've already done all this, so you know, this is not what you would see when you're opening up the box yourself. But what is nice, I did notice, is that they've got a map of Stalingrad itself in the interior of the box lid as well, which is quite nice. Just to give you a little overview, really, of the city itself. But this is the rule book, so this is the same really as the previous rule books for Undaunted, and gives you an overview straight away, and also just talks about if you've never played Undaunted before, and also if you have played it as well, just tells you some of the things that may have slightly changed. And there's a couple of things in here that do change. It's there's just a couple of things like routing and some actions as well. There's a couple of these actions that have just slightly changed. They've just streamlined a couple of things from the early games for the better, in my opinion. I'm not going to go too much into that, because if you played it, or if you want to play it, you'll find this out yourself anyway. Then we get this components list. What's very good as well about this is you actually get storage in this. This is something that I've noticed in a lot of board games nowadays. They're starting to put storage in because a lot of people buy it separately, and I do. I buy it as a third-party extra, and I think the fact that they put this in and thought about it is a really good way of doing things, because everything's not just mixed up in there. We're just going to go through here. These are components lists, so these are the various cards, decks that you get. So you start off with a basic card deck, which you will play with, and then also you've got these other lock decks as well, an upgrade deck and also a reserve deck for both the Germans and the Soviets. Explanation of these cards here. Explanation a bit of the tokens. Again, if you played this already, Undaunted, you'd know this. And then it just shows you how to set up your first scenario. So this is scenario 011, which just corresponds to the name of the scenario. It's not 1 or anything, it's just 11. I don't know why they've decided to do it in this kind of numbering. Perhaps they are thinking of maybe adding more to it in the future, I don't know. But it also just tells you how to set up the game and get ready. And then it does actually say at this point, sorry, it gives you some of the rules here. We get through the basic rules. So you get to this page 17, and you are able at this point to be able to play a full game of Undaunted. So this is pretty much exactly the same as the previous Undaunted games. However, there is a slight difference here, like I said, and one of these things is routing. So I'm going to put this here. This is when you can't remove a card from your hand or your play area, your hand, your discard pile or your deck. Your unit will go into route, and what that means is they will then be moved backwards by your opponent. In the old game, they used to be removed. So the actual combat counter was taken off the board. So this is slightly different. They're staying on the board, but they are unable to do anything. If they get shot again and they get attacked again and it's successful, they will get pushed back further. So you keep shooting at them just to keep them moving back away from you. So that's quite a nice little rule. Instead of them just coming off the table, they're still there, but just in very poor condition. Also, there is a building cover bonus as well, which is new. So if you're firing at somebody from far away, it's harder to hit them. If you're fighting with them in the same square, the same tile, then it's relatively easier. So again, just another couple of little additions just to make it ever so slightly different, as it's a Stalingrad game rather than the open areas in North Africa or even Normandy. So just gives you a few examples here. And as I say, we get to this point where it says stop reading. So you've got this says got all the knowledge to play Stalingrad or Undaunted Stalingrad. However, once you've played that, you then continue on to the campaign setup as well. I'm not going to go too much into a lot of this because some of this is almost spoiler territory. But what happens in the campaign in the previous games, you just basically took a fresh platoon, they started again. In this, it's very different. You have casualties. Depending on how many casualties you've taken, you take replacements. And these are worse cards, so these are reserve cards. So these may only have 2 actions rather than 3, for example, for these riflemen. But you also, for the ones that have survived, they also get to upgrade, and then they get these extra upgraded actions onto theirs as well. So not only are you losing a bit of strength if you're losing too many men or women as well, but you are also gaining some strength by having these upgrades as well. So this is a really nice little simple system that just works really well for the campaign, and it's a very simple setup as well. We went through it just to get it ready for our next game, so it was all set up ready within 10 minutes, and that was our first time doing it, and this is something that will get easier as we go along. So I thought this is a really nice little move. It makes you think for future games do you want to stick around and take more casualties? You know, are you really going to push it and try to get that that objective in this particular scenario, or are you going to start pulling back? Because, you know, the more casualties you take, the more cards you're going to be turning into reserves. So, you know, it's a bit of a gamble, and something that you have to think about as well. Also, on top of this as well, we have the tiles of the city. I'll show you some of these in a second anyway, but they don't just stay as they always are. Like, again, in the earlier games, they were just double-sided tiles, and it was, you know, a building or an open area or woods or something. In this, you have specific buildings, and they get worse and worse. They can start off, and then they can get damaged, and then they can get destroyed. And this, again, will affect how well they defend against. I mean, what their defense value is. That drops down. You know, are tanks able to move through them? And also, if they're getting fortified as well, is another addition. And this is all part of the campaign itself. So if you fall back to a position, for example, and it tells you to use these tiles, you put these tiles into the setup. So this is the campaign, just to go through there. Then we've got some new components as well in here. So we've got Overwatch markers, mission point markers, escape markers, smoke markers, tunnels as well, and also vehicles. We've seen vehicles before, and mines as well, anti-tank and anti-personnel mines. So these are all new components in here. And then we just have all the actions as well in here to give you the brief overview of the game and how to play as well. So I'll just jump to the end of this page here, and that is basically the rule book. Underneath this, we also have a German scenario book, a Soviet scenario book, and a map book. What I'll do is I'll quickly show you through the map book here, because this is how you're going to be setting up your particular scenario. So again, just a brief overview of how to set things up, your baseline deck that you're going to be using, and then also the actual setups and the maps themselves. And what is nice is shows you exactly whereabouts in the city of Stalingrad these areas are as well. You can see down in the bottom corner here, so you know exactly whereabouts in the city you're fighting. We've already done this one, the 9th of January square, which is the opening one. And then we're moving on to one of these ones, 21 or 22, which are the same name, Take Aim, but if you look very subtly, there are some slight differences as to setup, depending on how who won the previous game, who won the previous scenario, is going to depend exactly on where you're going to be setting up and how you're going to be setting up, and even where the victory points are as well. And this is the same for pretty much all of it. So pretty much all of these games, all of these scenarios have at least 2 versions, and there are tons and tons and tons of these. And then also, of course, obviously you've got, you know, not only you can play this in the campaign, which I think it goes through to 15 actual games, 15 scenarios. You could just set these up and just play them anyway. So you don't need to do the campaign if you didn't want to. You know, once you've done the campaign and you just want to try some of these out again to see how you do, then, you know, you can definitely just go back and just set up any one of these that you want to set up and play again quite easy, quite happily, with all the rules in their head. So there's tons of replayability just in the game itself. Obviously, you know, you can also play as either the Germans here and the Soviets, and you choose before you start. In our game, Dean took the Germans, I took the Soviets. Now, I'm not going to go too much into these because this is spoiler territory, but I just want to show you how this works basically. So the scenario book themselves are actually stories. So you can see here it's almost like a choose your own adventure. Basically, it tells you which passage to read. You start on, I think it's passage 1, of course, over here, briefing 1, and then that tells you to go over to the next scenario, play the scenario, and then depending on how the scenario finishes, you then find the next passage, you read that, and then it tells you exactly how to move on to the next bit as well. Also, this is where you will find the game state as well. So depending on how the outcome of the game is, because this is your campaign record, you have a game state that starts here, the briefing, the read, which scenario you're playing, and then you also write in here who is the victor and who controls, in some cases, who controls the particular area that you're fighting over. Then the game state comes in here, depending on, as I say, the victor. Now she will tell you in the scenario, and then you basically look it up on this list, and that tells you which briefing to read. So then you flip forward to whichever it is, and it tells you all about it. Also, in the back you have each individual scenario, so as you fight these as well, and these tells you your deck. It tells you what you're going to have in your deck. It also tells you the current state, as we said, so we work that out afterwards, and also any victory conditions as well, and who will control that particular map tile, for example. So loads and loads of thought has gone into this, and this apparently they've employed, I can't remember his name, but they've employed an actual writer to write the story for both the Germans and the Soviets, and both of them have it. So as I say, replayability is you can play through this, and because you're going to be taking choices and making choices, it's going to be very different each time you play it, because you will take, if one wins one scenario, for example, you're going to be reading a different outcome here. So let me just show you. This is our campaign record so far. So the Soviets, we fought in the 9th January square. I just won, so we both marked in the Soviets. We then mark in who the victor was, what the game state is, what briefing we read, and then which scenario we're going to play next. So we both come back to this, and we can just pick this up straight away anytime. And as I say, this will then fill up, and we have yeah, it looks like 16 scenarios in total to play through. So it's it really is you know, a wide-ranging, in-depth game. It's just on its own, really, and you don't need any of the other Undaunted games to play it. It treats you as though you've never played them before, so that's a really nice thing. Right, let's have a look at these components and the tokens and things. As you can see already, I've popped all of this stuff out anyway, because I just can't wait. I love popping things, but I don't like having the big things around in here. But let's have a quick look in here, and then we'll talk about some of the cards. So these are the basic tokens. You've got the 3 squads, A, B and C. You've also got some extras as well in here. So we've got riflemen, gunners, scouts. What else we got in here? Sorry, that's another squad for re-squadding, I think. Then we've also got sharpshooters, snipers. We've got Romanians for the Germans. More scouts, more engineers, more riflemen in there. And then the Soviets also have another bunch of people as well, so they've got scouts, gunners, scouts, riflemen. They should have sharpshooters somewhere. There they are. Let's spot them. There's the sharpshooters, the snipers, partisans, and an anti-tank gun as well. We also have vehicles, so we've got KV-1s, T-34s, another T-34. The Germans, on the other hand, have got Panzer IV, Panzer IV, Panzer III, Stug and a Panzer III. We was talking about this, and we said that it might be nice to be able to put some of these figures on the table. I was even thinking about it the other night, just thinking maybe if I were to get some, you know, 10mm figures or something and just mount them on small bases like that, just to really lift it up a little bit. It'd be a good way of doing it. Pendragon do them, it's dead easy. So anyway, we've got all the other tokens. These are the control and the scouting tokens, as in before with the other Normandy games, sorry, Undaunted games. Then we've got victory tokens, control tokens as well. These are all the anti-tank stuff, and then these are the already mentioned, and the routed squares, so they will just sit on top of the unit if it is routed. And again, this is all provided as part of the game, which is great. Lovely to see. I love to see a bit of storage. And then let's have a look at some of these cards as well. This is what I thought was quite nice as well, is we have these little storage sets, and these are for each one. So this is a German one, we've got the Soviet one there. I'm not bringing it out because it's the same. So you get some dice, a couple of dice each. Here is your active deck. So this is the deck that you are playing with, and this is the one that I've got set up at the moment. So this I'll be using in my next game. Here, still sealed, we have the locked deck, and it says do not open until instructed. So I'm not going to be opening that one. Over here we have the upgrade deck, which I've already opened because we upgraded some of our troops. Here is this is the reserve deck, I believe. Let me just get the card out to show you. Yes, that's the reserve deck. So again, these are the ones who aren't as good as the original ones when these are put in. So you can see, for example, this guy, he can't actually move, but he can only attack and control. So he's not going to be particularly useful, is he? But at least if he starts on a place that is a victory point, you can control it. And then here, in this last section, these are the ones that were killed in the game that we took out or have upgraded. So we lost 3 of these, I think, and then 2 of them were upgraded because we had quite a bloody battle. So this is a German. So yes, he lost quite a few, over 10, and I lost over 10 as well. But as I say, let's just have a quick look at some of these upgrade cards. So this is a little bit of a spoiler, but here's let me just show you a typical scout. I'll find one out for you, and you can see exactly how the upgrade works with it. If you watch, it's probably the last one. There we are. It's B Scout, but they're basically the same. So this scout he can scout, he can attack, he can recon, and he can conceal. Whereas the upgraded one, scouts, attacks. He also has explore and conceal. Explore, if I remember correctly, is it's a recon action, so that means you get rid of a fog of war card out of your hand, so that's very useful. But also you can then scout as well, so it's almost like a double move basically for the scouts, and they're all different. This is the thing, because this one matches the scouts that we've already upgraded. So let me just show you what I mean by that. Because they are all the cards are numbered in the corner. So this scout here, so this is the upgrade of this scout here. So this is how it works. You take this scout out, you find his number in the bottom corner, and then you add in this one with this number here as well. So that's really how the upgrading works. And also, well, the same really with the reserves. I've already mentioned it, but let's just have a quick look. So here's a rifleman, one of the ones that was shot here. So we have these guys. We've got his attack isn't as good in this case, but he's a reserve, so he's not going to be as good as the previous ones. I'm not sure how you get rid of the reserves yet, or if they upgrade later on, because we haven't got that far in the game. But fingers crossed they will do. And then finally, I mentioned them. Let's just have a quick look. These are the tiles for the game itself, and this is your map tiles, and these are obviously going to be set out in whichever scenario it is that you make. So far we haven't changed any of these yet, so these are the basic ones. But you've got, just to show you, there's school number 9. Again, really nicely produced, lovely tiles here. There is Pavlov's house in here because we were fighting over that just the other day. But you can see how nice these are produced. Each one is numbered, and they also have the particular stats that apply to them as well in the game as well. So this is cover and things like that. But then we also have, as I say, the upgraded or destroyed and damaged tiles as well. So there you see the milk house. I think we just went through that one. You can see how badly damaged it is. And how badly damaged they are getting. So again, this is something that, you know, the actual map itself will change. There's Pavlov's house in bits, and these match in numbers to the original ones. But what happens is you will take the as things get damaged, you take them out of this set here and put them into this set here. And then if you want to, at the end of it all, obviously you can just reset the entire game and the entire campaign itself. Play again, or as I say, you can quite easily just set up any of the scenarios and just play those. And then, as always with these games, really well designed. As I say, you know, I mentioned it, I'll say it again. I mean, the recommended retail price is quite high. I'm not doubting that. However, I think for the amount of work and design that has just gone into this, it's well worth it. You know, you'll be playing this for a long time. Even if you sat down and just played one scenario for a night, you'd have a fortnight's worth of gaming in this. Then you could swap over, take you up to a month's worth of gaming. So, you know, you could just easily just get away with buying this and just enjoying the entire game itself. Alright, as I say, I was very excited to get this. I was very excited when it was announced. It has absolutely lived up to my expectations, and that's only from playing one game as well and just having a look in it. Let me know what you think in the comments if you've bought it. If you've tried it, let me know. Are you enjoying playing it? As I certainly am. If you're not enjoying playing it, let me know why. But I think it's a great game, and I am thinking about, as I say, just adding a little bit of extras to it by adding some maybe 10 or 12mm figures just to really bump it up a little bit. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, short review, preview, box open, whatever you want to call it. I certainly think if you should really dive into Undaunted, even if you get the Undaunted Normandy version, which is quite cheap nowadays. It's only about 20 quid. That's well worth getting as well. It's a great game, really good system. I know they're doing the Battle of Britain sometime next year, I think 2023. Really looking forward to that as well, because I'm going to be interested to see how they do that, since they've done so much on Stalingrad here. But I think, you know, it's well worth it. Check it out. It's a great system, really good fun. All right, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Hit that like button as well, and also the little bell so you'll get notifications whenever I do update new videos. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this myself or as a video, simply because there isn't a solo version of it. I will be very surprised if a solo version doesn't come out for it at some point though in the future. I am fairly sure it probably will do. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thanks again for watching, and as I say, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next Storm of Steel video.